It took 45 years in advanced computerized fingerprinting technology to solve the murder of 2 California police officers. Welcome to Sunday Solves, where I highlight cases that prove that even the passage of time won't stop justice. In 1957, Gerald Mason, 23, was released from a South Carolina state prison after serving time for a burglary in 1956. He hitchhiked to California, stopping in Louisiana to purchase a revolver using an alias. He would later tell investigators that he purchased the revolver to protect himself while hitchhiking. When Gerald made it to Hawthorne, California, he discovered 4 teenagers hanging out at the local Lover's Lane. He walked up to the 2 couples, forcing them to strip down to their underwear, bound and blindfolded all 4 of them, and sexually assaulted one of the girls. He then got into their 1949 Ford sedan, fleeing the scene only to run a red light and get pulled over by 2 officers, Richard Phillips and Milton Curtis. Gerald waited for both officers to turn their back away from him, and that's when he shot both officers 3 times each before getting back into the stolen sedan and speeding away. Officer Phillips was able to get off some shots at the vehicle that Gerald was driving, and in his last moments was able to wound Gerald. By the time help arrived, Officer Phillips and Officer Curtis were not able to be saved. At some point, Gerald did ditch the stolen car and the weapon and fled through a bunch of neighborhood backyards, hitchhiking a ride from the area. After this, Gerald went out and created a new life. He got married, raised a family, owned a few service stations, and was described by friends, family, and neighbors as friendly and helpful. As far as the investigative side, it would be the murder weapon being recovered a mile from the crime scene in a backyard 3 years later that would be investigators' first real lead. They were able to use the serial number and trace the purchase back to a Sears in Louisiana under the alias George D. Wilson. This signature also matched another signature on a downtown YMCA receipt that is located next to the Sears store where the weapon was purchased. From there, investigators decided they were going to track down every George D. Wilson they could in the United States and rule them out one by one. Despite chasing down every possible lead, the case went cold and all their leads dried up. That was until 2002, when there was major advancements in computerized fingerprinting technology. The FBI decided to expand their database to include prints collected during arrests in all 50 states. Officers were able to pull a partial thumbprint from the steering wheel of the stolen car that Gerald was driving and connect his fingerprints to a convicted burglar in 1956 who served time in a South Carolina state prison. Now investigators knew it was Gerald, but they wanted to make sure they had more than just a partial fingerprint, so they wanted to make sure to match the handwriting from the receipt at the YMCA and the purchase of the revolver to Gerald's, and it did match. When police tracked down Gerald, he was living in his hometown of South Carolina, and during his arrest, they were able to verify the bullet wound scar on his back from the bullet fired by Officer Phillips in 1957. Gerald would end up pleading guilty to both officers' murders and was sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms with a minimum of 7 years. There was a plea deal put together by the state that would drop the robbery, grand theft, and sexual assault charges so that the victims would not have to come forward and testify, and Gerald's family would not have to sit through the testimony. In 2009, Gerald applied for parole. He was now 75, but he was turned down. The 3 members of the board decided that Gerald should not come before the parole panel for at least 15 years. Gerald would have been 90 by the time his second parole hearing came, but he passed away in 2017, just shy of his 83rd birthday. This is why I say that none of these cases are too old to be solved. With advancements in forensic technology, we are going to continue to see more and more cases solved from decades ago. Learning about how cases are solved, even decades later, gives families and loved ones so much hope. And sometimes hope is all you need to keep pushing forward. I'll see you all back here next week for another Sunday Solved.